It feels like just yesterday that I talked about Life is Strange in a critical fashion for the first time, but it's somehow been almost 4 years. I've changed a lot since writing the original, and I think it's about time that I rewind and look back on an old favorite. I still love the original essay, don't get me wrong, but there's more I can do now, and a lot more I can say. So let's do it right and give the game the essay it deserves. And by do it right, I mean I'm going to be extremely self-indulgent and remake it with even more detail and analysis. Life is Strange is a choice-based game from 2015, and its impact on that style is undeniable. This not-so-little gem isn't without its flaws, but it's such a good game. Today, let's take another look at the story, the characters, why Max Caulfield is one of my favorite protagonists ever, and why Chloe is still a terrible character, and why Chloe and Max's potential relationship doesn't actually work well narratively. But wait, there's more! New to this edition, we're also going to discuss a bunch of needlessly academic points like the video game romance options dilemma, the power of music, and a few other special surprises. Grab your instant cameras and let's rewind to where the Glazed Ham essays truly started. Waking up in the middle of a storm is already annoying, so consider how annoying it is to wake up face down outside in the storm of a lifetime. That's Max's current situation anyways. Max is appropriately confused, and as she gathers her bearings, she heads up to the nearby lighthouse to see what's going on. What she witnesses is a hurricane just straight up killing the entire town, and you get hit by a newspaper that tells you what day it is. It's Friday. And it's this upcoming Friday, which means this storm is coming soon. Anyways, it's actually Monday, I'm in pain, and so is Max when she realizes she's still in class. She's in photography class with renowned photo man Mark Zuck! Sorry, Mark Jefferson, or as I'll call him, Mr. Nutella Beard. He said the thing! We sit in on the last 3 minutes or so of class, witness some bullying, get called out to answer a question we don't know the answer to. The answer is Louis Daguerre. And then the bell rings and we get to go to the bathroom to wash our face and calm down. Do you know what the butterfly effect is? Well, if you did, you'd know that the butterfly that just flew into the bathroom means nothing but trouble. But Max doesn't know this yet, so she just takes a photo and aims to move on with her night. But no, we can't outrun fate. Suddenly, Nathan Prescott, the CEO of Rich Kid Daddy Issues, enters the girls' bathroom, and he's freaking the hell out. He's scared, and for good reason too. Hell, even I'm afraid of what's coming. But alas, dread it, run from it, attempt to kill it, you can't escape, because Chloe always arrives. She's here to collect some money, otherwise she's gonna blackmail the hell out of him. As she goes off on him, he pulls out a Glock and he's ready to pull the trigger. He does, Chloe hits the floor, and... Now we're back in class? Okay, now things are getting a little strange, but it is what it is. Don't worry, our time-bending adventure has only just begun. See, everything we saw upon waking up in class the first time is happening again. Except Max is clumsy and knocks her camera off the table. The poor little guy is destroyed, and it hurts me more than you can imagine. Well, if we're victims of such an unjust tragedy, we may as well see if we can actually rewind time. Surprise, surprise, we can, and we've got a mission. Save Chloe, much to my dismay. However, I know things that Max doesn't, and this dramatic irony could have led to a much more interesting path where we just refuse to save her and see how that plays out. We'll never get that choice. And so we had to save her. Maybe this is a really clever commentary on the never-ending struggle between fate and free will, or maybe it's just the critical flaw of a choice-based narrative. Save the girl by abusing your new superpowers, get grilled by the principal, and learn you can't get justice yet because the Prescotts are the evil rich people that run this town. And you're just a teenage girl or whatever. Regardless, head outside into a really pretty day. Wander around campus for a bit and then get a text from my dearly beloved boy Warren. I'm not exaggerating, he's my favorite. I absolutely love this character and I can't understate it. He's just like me, you know what I mean? He's a fan of weird, obscure movies and TV shows. He's a genuinely smart and super sweet guy. He's a dweeb. And if this game was set in modern day, you just know he'd be making video essays on obscure crap nobody cares about. His biggest flaw is that he isn't an English nerd, because if he was, he'd be the perfect being. And, you know, between you and me, he's pretty cute, I won't lie. Anyways, me swooning aside, Warren has asked for his flash drive back. So head off back to the dorms, meander around campus, talk to some friends like Kate, who's currently having a pretty rough time right now and could really use a friend. Or talk to Alyssa, who could really use a guardian angel, or spider senses, or, you know, any kind of situational awareness whatsoever. Besides the point. Upon arriving at the dorm doors, we run into a problem. Victoria and her lackeys. They're the resident rich bitch friend group, a la Mean Girls. Or Mean Girls. As wide and varied as my knowledge is, I don't have that many examples for this, and that's actually kind of sad. Anyways, Victoria is the leader, and she's worse than the whole damn bunch put together. Keeping in line with her predecessors, she's also extremely sad, pathetic, and vaguely pitiable at times. So think more along the lines of Tom in The Great Gatsby. Glazed Ham note: this is a historic moment in the history of Glazed Ham because I just made 2 Gatsby comparisons and references that actually work in the context of the novel. This is bigger character growth than you think it is. Back on the rails, they're blocking your path into the dorms and they won't let you in. They harass you and you've got to find a way in. Look at your surroundings and pull a Carrie prom crank on Victoria with paint. Don't worry, no pigs were harmed. And enjoy as she freaks out about getting paint on her cashmere. And watch as she sends her lackeys into the dorm for towels. Oh no, how tragic. Man, it's really hard to feel sympathy for someone who has several cameras worth more than $5,000 each, and whose family owns several art galleries. I bring all of this up to say that you're presented with a choice. Make fun of Victoria or comfort her. I know it's really tempting to be mean, and you can do either and face very little repercussions, but for the sake of this story, let's teach Victoria some basic empathy. Yeah? Yeah. Finally, we're in the dorms. Gaze upon this extremely nice residence hall and enter Max's dorm. It's a single dorm that's as big as a hotel room, which is absurdly nice for this apparently being a boarding school high school. I can't stress how absurdly nice this place is, and it really puts into perspective how unbalanced the American education system is. Anyways, this place is a security nightmare because apparently no one can lock their doors, as shown by Dana having taken the flash drive to watch some movies while she studies. Head down the hall, go to get the flash drive, and see that Juliet Watson has locked Dana in her room. Not gonna question that safety nightmare. For apparently sexting her boyfriend Zach. When confronted about who told her this, Juliet tells Max that Victoria did. We know better than that, and Dana is pretty cool, so we got to prove her innocence by becoming a room raider, just like that MTV dating show Room Raiders. It's exactly what you think it is. And upon exploring the mysteries of Victoria's emails, we discover the truth. It was all a lie created by Victoria. And also, she's been sexting Zach, but that won't be brought up ever again. Now. Use her printer and prove to the judge Juliet that the defendant Dana is innocent. They make up because they're best friends, and Max finally retrieves the flash drive. But not after having a conversation with Dana about the flash drive, and specifically a folder named Max, which has very obvious implications that she doesn't understand. See, Warren has a big ol' crush on her, and she's a little too oblivious to notice, but don't worry, this dramatic irony will only get stronger and stronger. Begin the trek to the parking lot to finally visit the best boy in Arcadia Bay. Before that, you witness the head of security harassing Kate, and you have the choice to take a picture or intervene and be her hero. There is a correct answer here, and it's to intervene. While it'll make the security dick angry with you, it'll make Kate like you a lot, and it means more to her than you know. After that interruption, head to the parking lot to make your delivery and shoot the shit with the boy himself. Talk about movies, particularly Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill from 1965, directed by Russ Meyer, which is a pretty good movie, but it's not his best. His best is Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Talk about life and all that, and before you can tell Warren what's bothering you, Nathaniel, the shitroom shooter, is coming in ready to throw down. He starts grilling you and getting pretty violent about it when Warren steps up to the plate and takes the beating for you as a beat-up truck nearly runs you over. Make eye contact with the driver, and it's Chloe. Hop in and get the hell out of there as Warren gets his face kicked in. Drive off into the sunset and catch up with Chloe on how things have been. It's been 5 years since you left for Seattle and abandoned Chloe while she was at her most vulnerable, kind of like Victoria la criatura in el libro Frankenstein de Barry Wollstonecraft Shelley. Oddly though, the creature is much more literate than Chloe is, and also has a much more robust vocabulary too. Chloe attempts to emotionally manipulate you, a lot like the creature or Jay Gatsby, but what sets her apart from those two is that she isn't even vaguely sympathetic. And, you know, those two are a lot more complex characters, and on that note, I'm only mildly sorry about all the literary comparisons, so let's broaden the scope a bit and make some other deep-cut comparisons. Not right now, though. Anyways, Chloe here does her thing, Max attempts to reason with her, and she ain't having it, but she will have you over at a house that'll feel perfectly in place down in Tallahassee. Also, your camera was injured in the parking lot scuffle and is now as broken as Chloe, so you gotta find some tools to see if you can save the unsavable. Look at the decaying house that was once full of such love and hope. What was once a place where your childhood best friend lived is now a monument to the uncaring cruelty of life, and more currently, a testament to the differences between Max and Chloe. Head up to Chloe's room and assess the damage done to your camera before you get kicked out by Chloe so she can smoke some weed. She kicks you out and says there's some tools down in the garage that you can use, but you'll have to find them since Mom's new husband is reorganized. Explore the downstairs and remember a string of childhood memories about when Chloe was cool and when her dad was still alive. Find the tools and find some hidden cameras and all sorts of fun things in the garage before you head up to perform some camera surgery. I'll tell you, the surgery wasn't necessary because the poor boy is already dead, but not as dead as you're about to be. After Chloe is in a better mood, she puts on some music and begins to dance around until Mom's new husband, or rather Blackwell's head of security, David Madsen, comes and knocks on the door. You'll be dead if he finds you, so you gotta hide. Successfully hide in the closet and witness Chloe get chewed out and even slapped for her acts of pointless, self-destructive chicanery. And truly, for the first time in this remake essay, I get to say the immortal words of the first true recurring bit in Glazed Ham history. Chloe gets pissy! And then she says we're gonna exit through the window to the one place we can actually relax without any threats. The lighthouse. Wait a minute, there's only one lighthouse here in Arcadia Bay, and sure enough, it's the one from Max's dream. And speaking of dreams, we damn near instantly fall into a premonition dream upon trying to talk to Chloe while on the beach at the lighthouse overlook. Bench. Wow, I'm still as illiterate as ever, baby. Do the dream and realize in horror that the whole town is gonna die on Friday if you can't stop the storm of a lifetime from wrecking it. That, however, is a problem for the future. For now, we've got a different problem, as it's now snowing in the middle of a warm autumn day. We then get a montage of people around town reacting to this and living their life, along with some teasers for episode 2 after the credits play. The last image you see before moving on is a global stats screen where you can see how your choices compare to those of everyone else. It's a pretty neat little thing that I'll never mention again because it isn't relevant at all to what we're talking about today. Wake up, Max, we've got a city to save. Max just stayed up until like 4 a.m. attempting to understand her newfound powers, so she's running off like 3 to 4 hours of sleep. She looks at her phone and sees a bunch of texts from my least favorite character ever. Chloe wants to go have some breakfast and discuss your powers and all that bullshit to really disguise her true intentions of abusing your powers for the fun of it. Max, of course, doesn't realize this, and it's her tragic flaw as a hero, but we'll get to that, because first, we've got to go take a shower. Head out into the dorms, maybe make some of your daily rounds before you go, and discover that the bullying of Kate is getting much worse than you'd previously realized. This is fully seen when you walk into the showers and talk to Kate, who's looking a little worse for wear, even more so than yesterday. Despite her decaying deposition, she's very happy that you stepped in when David was harassing her, and she needs her copy of the October Country back. I still haven't read it, and it's been like 4 years. Max says she'll give it back after her shower. As she showers, Victoria and her other lackey enter and start harassing Kate over this video you've heard so much about, despite not knowing what it is. And what is it, you may ask, as the viewer? It's one of the grossest things you can imagine, because it's a video of a clearly drugged Kate making out with a lot of dudes at a party, and instead of anyone being a good person and helping her, They just take a video and laugh and spread it. And do you see why I have no sympathy for Victoria? It's even worse because she essentially watched her friend Nathan drug this poor girl and she did nothing. As they continue berating this victim of a certain crime that YouTube doesn't want me to say, Kate runs off crying and they're laughing their asses off as though this is the funniest shit they've ever seen. To add to this supposed comedy, they write a link to the video on the bathroom mirror so that everyone can track this down and watch a video of an actual crime. Finish your shower and be the apparently only good person in this school by erasing the link. It won't do much to stop its spread, but you're actually still trying your best to be an actual person. Anyways, Max heads back to her room to get the book, and she finds that her room has been vandalized by that worthless piece of shit Nathan Prescott. You don't have the time to deal with this right now, though, so go get the book and go talk to Kate. Deliver the book and have a conversation that eventually leads to Kate asking what she should do about the video. I immediately chose to tell her to go to the police because I really want to believe that the police would actually do their job, unlike any other authority figure in this town, because I want to watch Nathan's life come crashing down in flames. Honestly, even incarceration would be too light of a punishment for this piece of human trash, but that's a problem for another day. Today, Kate thanks you for being a good friend and for giving her the courage to go to the police for help. Head out into the world and continue to ignore Chloe for as long as you want, because she can't really do anything on time, and it's not even when she's the one who set the time. Anyways, talk to people, take a picture of a squirrel doing squirrel stuff, and eventually, there he is! There's my favorite white boy! Warren is outside, and he's nervously hoping to catch Max before school because he wants to ask if she'd like to go to the drive-in theater to watch a Planet of the Apes marathon. And if you think I said anything other than yes, you clearly haven't been paying attention to this. I don't blame you, but be better, man. He's so happy about it, and it makes me sad that there isn't a bonus epilogue episode where you get to go on the date or anything for that matter. Besides the point. Back on track, it's time to catch a ride to town and go get some breakfast. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the bus ride with the game's absolutely phenomenal soundtrack. Arrive outside the Two Whales Diner and get something to eat. Chloe is still gonna be like 10 minutes late, so let's take some time to go to the bathroom, see a Twin Peaks reference that became a series in joke. For context, there's graffiti on the wall that says "Fire Walk with Me," a reference to a recurring message in Twin Peaks and the title of the prequel film, Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. This then became the name of a band in the game's lore, and it's just kind of a cool game factus. And eventually sit down to see a familiar face. It's Chloe's mom, and no, she does not have it going on, which is sad because it takes away my chance to make the very obvious joke. She's happy to see you, and she's glad to know you've grown up to be better than her dumpy-ass kid. But that's all irrelevant because she's got a very important question to ask. What are you gonna have for breakfast? Order some food? I got waffles because who doesn't love a good waffle? And then the bane of my existence comes in and and I'm immediately less happy. CHLOE here isn't exactly convinced your time-bending powers, so you're gonna have to pass her trials. They're both memory-based and involve you cheating until you get things exactly right. So be kind, rewind, and prove to her that you've got a superpower. After eating and witnessing your powers, Chloe wants to go abuse your powers for fun, much to Max's dismay. As you leave the diner, Max gets a call from Kate. Chloe wants you to ignore it and go. Let me tell you, brother, I wasn't going to ignore Kate. Chloe gets pissy at you for being a good friend to someone who's very clearly suicidal, and she can die mad about it because I actually like Kate. Chloe won't remember this anyways, because upon arriving at her home away from hell, the junkyard, its name is American Rust, like the book that I still haven't read, she starts drinking and asks you to go get some bottles for target practice. Ah, guns and booze, the greatest American combo ever made even better when it's someone as self-destructive as Chloe. Despite my protests, in a game about choice, I don't get to make this one, so I begrudgingly oblige. Collect the bottles along the way as you explore the junkyard, or if you're me, you look at how there's an obvious piece of foreshadowing here, and look at the inconsistencies between here and before the storm. Make sure to take my favorite screenshot when you sit at the stump, and eventually return to Chloe with the bottles in tow. Prep the range, and take the shot. And by take the shot, I mean make sure Chloe doesn't kill herself accidentally, because the game won't let her suffer the consequences of her actions. Max eventually gets a massive nosebleed due to her overusing her powers, and she passes out, awakening Chloe's lap on the hood of a junked car, and upon noticing you're alive, Chloe hands you the gun so you can go shoot shit. But then a wild Frank appears! Max freezes in fear as the drug dealer starts asking where his money is, Tinny, and I choose to not even try to use the gun, because I don't need Frank threatening me on top of the entire Prescott family, and he yoinks that shit as collateral before leaving. Chloe gets pissy! You two go for a walk on the wrong side of the train tracks, Chloe gets stuck, and you have to save her instead of letting her get hit by a train, rewinding, then letting her get hit again in a very satisfying loop. Now that's abusing your powers in a worthwhile way. Anyways, save Chloe the koala and head back to campus. Back at school, you've got some time to kill. So when I got a text from my boy, you best believe I beelined straight there. Warren needs help with an experiment, so I helped him out, and he's so happy, which prompts Max to think, quote, he's pretty cute when he's in full-on geek mode, because it's a statement of pure fact. Anyways, we've got to get back on track, and the good times can't last, because it's turned really shitty and gray outside. Anyone who's seen any piece of media knows that the rain is a terrible thing, and then some random guy barges into class talking about how someone's on the roof of the dorms. Rush to the dorms and then watch in horror as you realize it's Kate. Max does the only thing she can think of, and she starts rewinding time again and again, but not getting very far due to her abuse of power earlier in the day, so it just breaks. Yeah, time literally stops around you as you run up to that rooftop, and you arrive just in the nick of time to be able to try and talk Kate down. It's a really tense scene, and when you're unable to use your powers, knowing that every choice counts, it's a really good scene that really tests if you've paid attention to the small details and if you've been a good person. Successfully talk her down, and you've truly done a good thing today. And your good deeds don't go unnoticed, because now you have the chance to strike back at Nathan. While you're being questioned after the most traumatic experience of Max's life, you're given the opportunity to tell your side of the story. Or rather, you can tell the authorities what really happened and get Kate the justice she deserves. Nathan is now under investigation, and he's been suspended from the school for the time being. The episode ends with Max and Warren sitting and talking about the day and how she's a hero and all that good stuff, when suddenly a solar eclipse happens out of nowhere. The two comment on how strange this is, especially with how weirdly cold it's gotten too, so they get close together and Warren puts an arm around Max. It's a very cute moment before we fall into the same shots around town routine. It's 9 p.m. that same day, and we open on Max waking up and screaming, "Kate!" which is understandable given what happened like 7 hours earlier. As Kate is in the hospital, Max is taking care of her rabbit, Alice, so her room has a temporary little visitor. That's nice. Not so nice, however, is a text from Chloe saying that she's on campus and she has a surprise for you. Make your way out of the dorms, ignoring the extremely drunk principal stumbling around outside, and get jump-scared by Douche-Friendulous the Stoned. Mac appropriately loses her shit, and Chloe tries to awkwardly backpedal out of the problem she just caused herself. Chloe reveals her actual surprise, which is the keys to the school, and she wants to do a little trolling. So her plan is to engage in some good old B&E for some reason we don't fully understand. For whatever reason, Max agrees to this, and the two enter the school. Chloe really wants to get into Principal Wells' office because she's trying her damnedest to find any information about her missing friend / love of her life, but not in this game. I'll get to this later because I've got an idea. And that would be Rachel Amber. Problem: we don't have the keys to the principal's office, and the solution is simple, and its name is Warren. Warren is a classic science nerd, and as such, he's got a nice, easy plan for you. Make a pipe bomb out of school supplies. Honestly, his MS Paint sketches of how to blow up the door are legitimately a really good joke and are pretty funny. I mean, even Max comments on his fun drawings being fun, so it's not just me, okay? Anyways, explore the empty halls to get your supplies. Explore empty classrooms, find some fun photo ops, and see that one of the teachers has left her grade book out on her desk. A rookie mistake to be sure, because while Warren may have earned an A-, we're gonna round and fudge some numbers to get him an easy easy A+, because he's my boy and he deserves it. Anyways, get the goods and report back to Chloe with your idea. Take cover behind the secretary's desk and blow a hole in the door. Congratulations, you're in. The only problem is that now the police are on their way and you've got to figure out how to get out of this mess. And how do you do it? Take a guess. Take a wild guess. I mean, surely it can't be as easy as entering the office and rewinding time, right? Wait. It's that easy? Huh, who would have thought? Chloe didn't expect me to open the office door from the inside, but I sure did. Once inside, the two start rifling through drawers and cabinets in an effort to find any information about Rachel, since she's become plot relevant now. Very conveniently after Chloe realizes you have superpowers. Interesting. Anyways, you search for information on everyone's least favorite boy, Nathan Scott, from that one show. What's it called? Lone Sapling Mound? Solo Seedling Slope? One Silent Tree Hill? One Tree High Ground? I couldn't tell you. Diving into all available information, you discover that the beloved Prescott son isn't actually the good little golden boy that everyone seems to think he is, because his shit-ass dad has been throwing money at any and all problems, instead of seeking the medical help this dog-shit child needs. Upon exhausting all available options of search, Max says they should leave, but not before Chloe opens up a drawer in the principal's office to discover $5,000! It's in an envelope and is money meant to make the school more disability friendly. But Chloe doesn't give a shit, and as she is a greedy, self-serving asshole, so she plans to take it. Max is the voice of reason and hits Chloe with a metaphorical spray bottle, telling her not to steal money from an accessibility fund. Chloe gets pissy at you for foiling her theft, and she leaves the office. As the two approach the main doors, Chloe hits you with that wannabe Gatsby smile, and she says she's got a plan, John. And it's a good one. Just like Chrissy, she wants to go swimming! Thankfully, there's no sharks in these pool waters, so it's all right. Enter the pool and pick a locker room to go through. It doesn't really matter. But there's more interesting things in the boys' locker room. Chloe calls you a perv and moves on towards the pool. I take a look around the locker room to find all sorts of fun things, like a bunch of prescription pills in Nathan's locker, a bunch of gross sects from Victoria in the phone of Zach in his locker, and a picture of Max and Warren in Warren's locker. Max is oblivious as to why Warren has this picture, but you know it at this point, right? Moving on, do a little pool temperature and light control, and jump in. After removing your clothes, of course. The two float around and shoot the shit and just kind of talk about life. It's that kind of late night conversation that just has an odd, overwhelming nostalgia to it, even if the things you're talking about are recent events. It's a really good scene, which is probably in part because it's one of the only moments that shows Chloe as an actual human being with no self-serving needs. It's just them having a good conversation. It doesn't matter because nothing ever lasts forever and it's time to go home. But there's a problem. David Madsen is here. Dear God. There's more security cops here too. No. Well, it's time to Metal Gear Solid your way out of here and back to Chloe's house. I would like to apologize for this next bit that I am about to do. I'm sorry. When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. Because Max wakes up for the second time this episode, but this time it's in the morning and in Chloe's bed. Take a selfie, roll out of bed, and go get dressed. Only problem is, your clothes reek of chlorine and are essentially unwearable. Chloe tells you that Rachel left some clothes here and she was about your size, so you can just wear her stuff. Ignoring how strange it is to wear the clothes of someone you've never met, get dressed and impress Chloe with your new look. She'll then dare you to kiss her. Actually, she double dog dares you. And I say no, simply because we don't negotiate with terrorists. Max actually responds by saying, quote, "Sorry, I'm not that easy," which is good. But Chloe's response of texting Warren that you're, quote, saving yourself all for him is the funniest thing she could have done, and is a moment that really showcases that this character could have been so much better. I'll always maintain that Chloe is a victim of bad writing, and it's because she is, and I'll touch on this later. More to the point, Chloe immediately ruins this one good moment by kicking you out of the room so she can smoke some weed, head downstairs, talk to Joyce, and once again answer the question of what do you want for breakfast. I chose the pancakes, because why wouldn't you? Anyways, Chloe comes downstairs and gives you a distraction so you can rifle through Step Douche's stuff, find some evidence of him being an absolute creep, and then return to Chloe. You're about to head out when David Madsen comes in. As always, Chloe and Madsen start throwing down fighting words, and you've got to step in and pick a side. For once, I actually sided with Chloe, and thus Madsen got kicked out of the house. Cope, seethe, and mauled Madsen, I've got better things to do. After this little diversion, it's time to break some bad and get more information about Rachel. Who owns this RV? Frank. And upon searching, you discover that Rachel has a secretive relationship with Frank. And this comes as a shock to Chloe, and boy oh boy does she get ultra pissy. The following car ride is really where Chloe's true nature comes out, as she has a Pink-esque mental breakdown. She just rips into every traumatic event in her life, and just like the man behind the wall, she fails to understand that she can't push everyone away and expect them to help her. This scene makes it really hard for me to give a single shit about Chloe, because she's so self-destructive, and it's abundantly clear that she doesn't want help getting better. She wants to wallow in her own despair and drag everyone else down to her level. And this idea ties into a point I want to make later, so keep this in the back of your mind. So after you've endured this hellish car ride, back to Blackwell, and let's go to bed and sleep it off. Or you decide to warp to the past to see if you can prevent Chloe from becoming the monster that she is. So Max, utilizing an old photo, warps into the past and prevents Chloe's dad from dying. It's a nice idea, but this action has some devastating consequences, and when you snap back to reality, it's been altered by this attempt to rewrite fate, and things are horrendously wrong. For starters, Max is now a popular kid, whose friends include Victoria and Nathan Scott, and somehow, against all odds, Warren got a girlfriend. Funny enough, this is the moment when Max realizes that everything's wrong. What does this say about her character? Anyway, yeah, and upon understanding that shit has hit the fan, you immediately get on a bus and head to Chloe's house, only to discover that her dad being alive means she later got into a car accident that paralyzed her from the neck down. The episode ends on this reveal, and we get the standard shots around town. Particularly a shot of the beach covered in dead whales. It's definitely something, and don't worry, it'll only get more dark and sad from here. We open on Max and alternate reality Chloe meandering down the beach. They talk and catch up on how things have been, which really means Max needs to catch up on this reality story. Max learns about how her time-traveling attempt to prevent Chloe from growing into the self-destructive monster that she's became directly resulted in Chloe getting into a car accident, and it's definitely a bummer, and and don't worry, it'll only get darker from here. The two eventually head home and watch, you guessed it, Blade Runner, which is a throwaway line in this game, but would retroactively become a critical event in Chloe's development. Max then wakes up for the first time this episode, and Chloe is in excruciating pain, so you're tasked with getting her opioids from the upstairs bathroom. You're then set loose into the house to explore just how different life in this reality is, from the obvious things like William still being alive and kicking, to the less obvious things like how the house is in still just as much disrepair because the Price family is always fated to be poor. There's a lot of things that seem just slightly off yet still make sense, but it doesn't matter because you've got to get Chloe her drugs. Return with the drugs and then it's time for fate to catch up to you because Chloe wants you to kill her. She's dying very slowly from organ failure, and she wants you to help speed up the process. It comes out of nowhere, and while it makes sense, it's still something that's never sat right with me. I feel like I should never choose to kill Chloe here, because it feels so wrong to do it, and it's oddly a scene that shows Chloe's true colors. When you refuse and talk about the very legitimate concerns that A, this isn't your choice to make, and B, you'd legally have just committed murder, she immediately gets super pissy and starts berating you. She's abusive and selfish, there's no way around it, and it's truly what defines Chloe. This definitely isn't the intended way you're supposed to feel about Chloe, but its implications as presented by the game. And after Chloe stops, you've got to end this reality and return to your own. So pull a Mario 64 and let William die. Sometimes the only thing you can do to help is nothing, even if it's the hardest thing to do. After snapping back to your reality, we're in Chloe's room, and Max is happy to see the original Chloe, no matter how terrible of a person she is. All that matters is that you guys need to find some clues. Need to find some clues to put Nathan in jail for good. So we start in the garage and find a bunch of pictures of license plates and some coordinates. It's nothing of any particular value, for now at least. Anyways, we go off on a slight tangent to go visit Kate in the hospital. For once in her entire life, Chloe apologizes to you for losing her shit when Max answered the phone. But I still don't care. I'm here to see Kate. Enter the hospital room and have a great conversation with her. Her and Max talk about all sorts of things, from how they're sad that they missed their weekly tea session this week, to how Warren is kinda cute, though, and all of that fun stuff. It's a bit of a world-building moment that the later games would start to do more often, and it's really interesting to see where they started with that. I wish this game had more of this and less of Chloe, but I digress. After you're done talking with Kate, Max heads to campus to find some more clues, particularly that might be in Nathan Scott's room. That said, there's a small problem. Nathan might be here, which would result in an immediate demise. So you gotta search around. Ask the people enjoying this nice day if they happen to know about the guy's whereabouts, and you'll quickly find out that he's not here. Awesome. So let's commit some more breaking and entering, which is apparently the official Oregon State pastime. The more you know. Anyways, take a look through the boys' dorm hall, witness the bullying of Warren, take the chance to write the cheesiest pickup line on the whiteboard outside of his room. In case you're wondering, it's, are you made of copper and beryllium? Because you're cute. Science puns, baby. And it's a really fun little detail. After you've had enough of exploring the halls, you'll eventually find your target room. Grab a nearby fire extinguisher and break the lock, and begin rifling through as fast as you can. This room has such an overwhelming, oppressive feeling, and it makes you question how anyone could actually live here, but I digress. Search the room and find a hidden phone box behind the couch, and also see a gun box out in the open for all to see, and then get the hell out of there. Alright, the heist has gone off without a hitch so far. All that's left is to get out of there. You approach Chloe at the end of the hall, and you're about to exit, when suddenly, Nathan is here. His paranoia, for once, proved correct. And so he immediately pulls out his trusty gun. As he does his typical monologuing, a new challenger enters the ring, and by God, it's Warren Graham out of nowhere with a steel chair! By God! Warren doesn't actually have a steel chair, but he does sucker punch Nathan, and it makes him drop the gun. Now, it's a fair fight, except it's not a fight at all. It's more like a slaughter. Warren has a love interest to protect. He's got the drive to be your hero. Speaking of Drive 2011, he just demolishes Nathan's face by repeatedly kicking his teeth in. Seriously, if Max and Chloe didn't stop him, he might have recreated the elevator scene. Anyhows, you could have stepped in and stopped the beating from being as severe, but Nathan getting what he deserves takes priority here. Head outside, talk to Warren, and he proves that he's still super socially awkward, yet still beyond confident. He truly just needs a scorpion jacket, and he'll have proved to be a real human being and a real hero. Anyways, Max and Chloe leave Warren because they need to go get some clues from Frank. Now it's time to survive some edged weapons, because you're going to have to negotiate with Frank if you want to figure out where Nathan bought drugs the night of the party where he drugged Kate. And if you can successfully smooth talk your way into getting his black book, you're golden and are good to leave. Otherwise, Chloe is going to have to use her gun to kill Frank and his dog when he pulls a knife and sends his dog after them. You can just leave them dead, or you can not be a monster and do it peacefully so the dog can live. Anyhow, head back to Chloe's house because it's time to put on your detective hat and become Cole Phelps as you utilize every clue to find the location of a specific barn in the middle of nowhere. You have the target, now let's investigate further. You arrive at a rundown old barn. After some Zelda-esque puzzle solving, you discover the barn is a cover-up for a hidden bunker. You break into the bunker and discover it's actually a dark room / dungeon that belongs to, you guessed it, the Prescotts. On a shelf, you discover tons of binders, each one labeled with names of a different girl, and 3 names in particular stand out: Kate, Victoria, and Rachel. Victoria's binder is the last one, and it's empty. You open the binder labeled Kate, and it's horrifying. These photos of a drugged Kate lying helplessly on the floor are haunting, but not as much as what is uncovered in Rachel's binder. Kate survived this tragedy, but Rachel wasn't so lucky. The binder is full of photos of Rachel's corpse, and where it's been buried. The two immediately race to where the photo appears to have been taken, and it's in the junkyard. Earlier I mentioned a bit of foreshadowing in the junkyard, and I didn't elaborate, so let's clarify this now. As soon as you can explore the junkyard, there's a spot near a junked school bus and a trashed restaurant sign, and it's a patch of dirt that was clearly dug through. And you don't think anything of it then, but as Max and Chloe rush there, you realize that's where Rachel's shallow grave is. And it's confirmed when they dig down far enough to discover the body. Chloe swears to avenge her dead love, and the Vortex Club party tonight seems like the perfect place to find that degenerate little Nathan. Time for the cliche high school party, baby. Woo! It's got it all. Underage drinking, obnoxious party music, a pool. 2 moons in the sky? Yep. Everything is here as it should be, and there definitely aren't any symbols of doom in the rotten air tonight. Once again, you're searching for Nathaniel Prepscoot, and yet again, you'll never find him. But you'll run into a drunken Warren who just wants to take a picture. Dude is just not there at all, and it's actually really funny. But this isn't important in the slightest. What is important in the slightest is that you're trying to figure out what you're gonna do. You can tell Victoria about the danger she's in, or you don't have to. Whether or not she'll believe you is up to how nice or mean you've been, and shockingly, this is mildly important. But I'll tell you that sometimes the best thing to do is nothing. Anyways, after another failed search for Nathan, you get an ominous text about the corpse of Rachel, so it's back to the junkyard again. Upon arrival, you find that the body is still there, and everything is fine, but not for long, as Chloe gets shot in the head and you get drugged. As you hit the floor, you get a glimpse of the man behind the slaughter, and it was Mr. Nutellabeard the whole time! This Scooby-Doo meets New Vegas-ass reveal is kinda set up in the background of the game, but it's not the best. You have to go out of your way to find the foreshadowing, but it is there. The episode ends here and we fade to black, and then the credits and a teaser for episode 5. No shots around town this time, so you know things have gotten serious. And it's time to wrap this little journey up with the grand finale. You wake up tied to a chair in the dark room. Before you lies a tripod, a cart, and not much else. This cold, sterile studio feels like something out of a Saw movie, but there isn't a puppet or CRT waiting for you here when you break one of your restraints. Max uses her leg to pull the cart towards herself, and on that cart are some photos of you tied to the chair. Let's do the photo warp again and figure out what the hell is going on here. It's exactly what you think it is. Mr. Nutellabeard in the past starts villain monologuing on all the important things, like how he basically groomed Nathan into being his scapegoat, how he's obsessed with capturing the exact moment innocence is lost and corruption takes hold, and oh yeah, Nathan is dead. In a moment of desperation, you reference your journal, to which he laughs and tosses it in front of you. And you see a photo the photo you took on Monday, and we photo warp again. Utilize your newfound knowledge and your fresh start to simply destroy Mr. Nutellabeard's entire life by texting good old David Madsen. Send the text, submit a photo to the contest that I've completely ignored, and be a hero. You then snap back to reality, and you see that everything has changed. You won the contest, you're being flown out to San Francisco to take part in an art show, both Nutellabeard and Nathan are in prison, and Chloe, regrettably, is still alive. Despite it all, you have achieved your dream, and the art world has taken notice of your work. But the good times don't last, and the nosebleed comes back in full force. It turns out, once you come to, you find that the storm is still happening and demolishing Arcadia Bay. You can't let the town die like this, so you've got to do the thing and warp back, and just let things happen. You're back to square one, back in the dark room, and your journal has been burnt to a crisp. And since you know too much, you have to die. As he preps the syringe to overdose you, he hears a noise, and it's time to use your rewind to aid the man, the myth, the legend, David Madsen. He's got his police gun, and with your direction, he successfully teaches Mark the takedown, and sets you free. From here, you can just leave, or you can tell David about what happened to Chloe and watch him blow a hole in Mr. Nutellabeard's skull, and you just leave him there. Call Warren to figure out where he is and head into town because you gotta be a hero and save as many people as you can. Despite having no confirmed driver's license, Max makes it into town without any issues, in weather that would best be described as the end of the world. Now, as you arrive into the main stretch, you make the sprint to the Two Whales Diner. You could just run straight there, or you could be a hero and help as many people as you can. And you should. Anyways, after stopping the diner from going kaboom, and then you get to the moment we've all been waiting for. You enter the diner and there he is, a real human being and a real hero, Warren. The drunken photo that Warren took is a key to saving the day, because you gotta do the photo warp. That said, you get the chance to finally explain everything, and I absolutely took the chance to do it. He has the patience of a saint, and he's incredibly understanding. You know, he's everything that Chloe isn't, which is why he's the best. Regardless, he'll hand you the photo, and you'll get a moment before you enter the photo to save the day to make your own choice. You know exactly what's coming. Max kisses the boy, and he does the thing where he's about to say, "I love you," but she cuts him off with that old, "I know," and she's off to be the hero. Warp back to yesterday night, and you've got to convince Chloe that which hasn't happened yet will, and how it'll cause her imminent demise, etc., etc. Eventually, you can clue her in. You snap back to reality, and you're on a beach heading up to the lighthouse when you pass out again. You're having a nightmare, and this section goes on forever, and it's a bit annoying. From being in class to being in a dorm hall labyrinth to walking down the hallway from the beginning of the game in reverse, it's kind of cool. Regardless, you reach the bathroom, and then you're in a nightmare stealth maze into a snow globe, and all of this is on the way to you being back in the dark room with Chloe berating you along with other people and blah blah blah. You get the point. The rest of the nightmare sequence continues on until you reach the lighthouse and come to at the real lighthouse. The two stand before the storm, watching from the cliff face as it ravages the town, when Max finally pieces it together and breaks down. Her saving Chloe caused this to occur. She altered the fate of the world, and thus the whole town has to pay. You unveil all of this to Chloe, who finally gets it now. She hands you the photo of the butterfly in the bathroom and tells you to do the warp and let her die. For the first time ever, she isn't selfish, and she tells you to do the right thing. And you're given the final choice. Do you save the town, or save Chloe? The answer to this trolley problem is incredibly obvious. You pull the lever and do the time warp and let her go. The butterfly flies away, Nathan flees the crime scene, you sit down and cry as we get our ending. We see Nathan and Mr. Nutellabeard getting arrested, we see Max console Joyce and David, we see Max gazing into the sunset at the lighthouse with no storm in sight. The game truly ends with a shot of Chloe's funeral, and we see the butterfly land on Chloe's casket and then fly into the sky. Max smiles because she knows she did the right thing, saved the town, and she knows she has escaped the wrath of the butterfly effect. Now knowing the things I've told you, let's talk about the people. I mean, they're basically half the game, so yeah, let's look at some of them, yeah? Since I am above limiting my work to a certain number of pages, we're just gonna go down the list of characters that aren't the main two I remember and go from there. Enjoy the following chaos. Nathan Prescott is a horrible person and a solid character. He's this smarmy rich kid with such a shitty home life and god complex that it's no wonder he's this psychotic. This American psycho just does it because he knows he can. He knows he's got so much money that it doesn't matter if he gets in trouble. The only thing he really needed was a father figure to help, and I guess he found one with someone more monstrous than him. Mr. Jefferson. Mark Jefferson groomed Nathan into being more evil so that he could have a scapegoat. The few moments where Nathan isn't putting up this tough guy front are interesting and show that there could have been a time where, if he had gotten the proper help, he could have been a normal person. Yet he, and every father figure in his life, do their best to drag him down. I'd put him in C tier, all things considered, not because I like him, but because I think there's some ideas that, if fleshed out more, could prove to be a more complex character than you'd think. Mr. Nutellabeard can go die in a hole. I'll admit his foreshadowing is great, and for that I guess it makes it a slightly better twist villain. but it really comes out of nowhere. There's no reason to suspect that he's the problem, yet there's something that makes him slightly interesting. Not that he's a good character though, because while he could have been a good villain, he's barely there, and when he is, it's not exactly like he's particularly interesting in the moment, that I'd rank him in F. That said, he's so slimy and gross that it puts him above F tier and into D. Victoria, the rich wench herself, one of the most annoying characters in the entire series. I rambled about her earlier, but she's kind of just an asshole for the sake of it. I know it's because she's got an extreme inferiority complex under the surface, but her actions are inexcusable. Part of me feels like she was supposed to get a redemption arc, yet they never went for it, which makes sense. I mean, the whole video thing is an irredeemable act. I don't care how much status you have, you should always try and do the right thing, especially when it's someone who can't fight back. She sucks, and it's kinda sad. That said, I have no sympathy for her, Nathan, or Nutella Beard. Put her in D tier. David Madsen is a nothing character here, but he's got an arc to go on in the second game after he gets divorced. Divorced! So I'll give him a pass. He has this kind of arc that Chloe should have had, but I'll cross that bridge later, specifically when I talk about Life is Strange 2. Anyway, for now, just know that 2013 Madsen sucks, but 2016 punished Madsen? A good character, B tier. Kate is a good character, and I wish she had more to do. I like her a lot, and I kinda wish that her character wasn't just reduced down to the attempted suicide arc, because the hospital scene where her and Max are just talking is a really great character moment, and I truly wish that Kate got more out of it. So much of what makes Kate so great is her endless optimism and hope that she was known for before the party incident, and her drawings while in the hospital are super cute proof of that. I wanted more of that. And the later games definitely noticed this criticism, but I'm gonna cover that when I cover those. For now, Kate is an A tier character. And finally, the main event, the character you're already tired of hearing about, my boy, Warren. God, what haven't I said about him? I mean, he really is the best little guy. He's such a pathetic little dude, yet he's so charming. Like, I can't help but love the guy for how goofy he is. He's a socially awkward nerd who's such a fun character, and he's the best. Repetition and meandering aside, as a character, he's a real hero. He's so supportive throughout the entire journey, and he's so great to be around. Really though, I wish the game utilized him more, just because he's the most likable side character, and it puts Chloe to shame. The fact that a main character is outclassed by the shy little movie nerd whose drives speaks volumes to how great he is and how terrible the character Chloe is. Anyways, everything aside, I really think he's a great character, and for as little as he gets to do, he's such a strong high point, and you already know that he's an S tier character. Like, did you even have to ask? Max Caulfield, the time-traveling photography nerd and tragic hero, a loser and an icon. Truly the best character this series has ever produced, and sadly, she's the one that gets overlooked as time marches on. She's such a fun character to me, and this contrasts so heavily with her arc in this tragedy that it balances out into her feeling more like a real human being. What makes her so interesting is her relatability. Her insecurities and inner monologue really help sell this. She has that crippling self-doubt that comes with creating anything, and it definitely hits close to home. Her drive to create overpowers all doubts, and in combination with her time-traveling powers, help her to gain newfound confidence to overcome those self-doubt issues. Sure, I don't have the power to time travel, as far as you know, but sometimes all you need is something to give you that confidence boost to power through and tear down the wall. Max is a tragic hero, and let me explain why. The main lesson she learns at the end of the game is that sometimes you can't help everyone, but you should always try to act in a way that helps the most people. It's a simple arc to be sure, and that's the point. Any character arc can be summarized and simplified to that degree, but it's a lesson as old as time. You also have to learn that sometimes the best thing you can do is nothing, and it's why you should let Chloe die. Throughout the entire game, you try your damnedest to help everyone you can. Chloe, Kate, Alyssa, Warren, Joyce, even Rachel, but you ultimately can't fight against fate. Chloe was supposed to die in that bathroom. That's her fate, and she can't change that. But you did, and it caused a horrible chain reaction. You know, that classical Greek tragedy shit, the same type of lesson that's been around since the dawn of man and will continue to expand and spread. The point is, Max's arc is one of a hero realizing they can't save everyone, and that they, at the end of the day, are still just a human. Nothing too groundbreaking, but for this style of game, you don't need groundbreaking. You just need really good execution. Rambling aside, I think that Max is such a good character. Definitely the best protagonist in the series, and it's not even a contest. Okay, well, it's a slight bit of a contest because Alex is also a phenomenal protagonist, but that's a different story. Max Caulfield is a real hero, a real human being, and that's what makes her so interesting. She's so well established throughout the game and that depth really helps her tragic journey hit so much better. And it's also why Chloe's nonsensical journey doesn't hit at all. Max is an iconic character and she deserves so much more recognition in future games. A truly great and complex character. I know there's more I could talk about here and it's stuff I talked about in the original, but I'm gonna move on and give that its own section because I've got more to pontificate on, and we'll get there when we get there. Before I can get to the new stuff, I have to talk about the koala in the room. It's been years since I first wrote about Chloe, and having played this game and its pre-sequel a lot, I think I've come to terms with how bad of a character Chloe is. Oddly enough, the pre-sequel that retcons so much about this character does just as bad a job at writing her as this game does. That's the biggest problem, though. The fact that this game came before the prequel kinda hurts the character that I'm supposed to care about, and the inconsistency in canon doesn't do her any favors. The one consistency in her character arc is Rachel. But the first game never really establishes their relationship well. This was expanded on in Before the Storm, but it makes this game make less sense. If the core of the pre-sequel is that they are star-crossed, self-destructive lovers bound together through sheer spite at the universe, then why does Chloe not tell Max that was her relationship with Rachel? All Chloe says in this game is that Rachel was, quote, her angel, which in context means that Rachel saved Chloe when she was at her lowest, which is a statement of fact even in the pre-sequel. What doesn't make sense is Before the Storm relying so heavily on their romantic relationship. The turbulent past that led to many of the things we see about Chloe now. The fact that Chloe never talks about this raises a lot of questions. If Rachel truly meant that much to Chloe, then why doesn't she let Max get that idea? Rachel has been missing for a month or two, and during that time, Chloe has done nothing but search for her. So why does she also try to make an effort to seduce Max? If Rachel was her angel, then why drop her for Max like nothing ever happened? It doesn't make sense. Or it doesn't even matter, quite frankly. In the prequel, we see that Chloe, even if only because of the player's intervention, is capable of not being a complete asshole to everyone, yet that attribute seems to have faded completely out in the 3 off-screen years between this game and that one. It's a change for the worse, which adds a lot if you view her and Chloe or Rachel's relationship as one like the one in the album Tallahassee by the Mountain Goats. It's one built on self-destruction and self-loathing, both of which describe Chloe to a T. But why? Why is she so unlikable? And more importantly, why should I care? Chloe never changes. She starts unlikable, ends unlikable, and while you have an enjoyable character who's just unlikable and doesn't grow, that relies entirely on the narrative. Travis Touchdown is an unlikable loser, but he's so charismatic that it doesn't matter. That and the story of No More Heroes doesn't have a lot of room for him to grow, but that's not the point. The point is, he's a dick throughout the whole game, and as the player, you still like him because he's such a fun character to be around. Chloe is not a fun character to be around. She isn't charismatic, which is one hell of a feat for the voice actress of Tiny Tina. Tiny Tina is a psychopathic 13-year-old in Borderlands 2, and is easily one of the best characters in that entire franchise, primarily because she's very funny and charismatic. Her personality is so clearly defined and enjoyable that it makes you question what went wrong with that performance and then Chloe's. It can all be chalked up to the same point as always. Chloe is a victim of bad writing. You can make a character like Chloe work, but you've got to put in a lot of work to make it good, especially in the writing. I, again, bring up Tallahassee, because that matches Chloe and Rachel's relationship perfectly. Actually, if you time it right, the scene at the end of the first episode of Before the Storm matches up perfectly with No Children, which is purely coincidence and you can't tell me otherwise. That said, that album works because you can perfectly piece together just how doomed this couple has been since the start, which is what Chloe's character should have been. You know she was doomed from the start, but she's an absolute failure of a character. Mark my words, I will one day get to remake that game from the ground up, and it will be leagues better, but that's a problem for another day. So for now, I want to say I'm sorry for stuff I haven't done yet, and don't worry, things will shortly get completely out of hand. Straight up, Chloe and Max's relationship sucks. I don't like it because it canonically makes no sense if you consider that Rachel is supposed to be the love of Chloe's life, but also because it's really abusive. Chloe does nothing but berate and manipulate you the entire game, yet everyone loves her. I don't get the obsession with this character and why she's the icon of the series instead of Max, or even Alex for that matter, but that's besides the point. Their relationship makes no sense in terms of romantic connection. This game takes place over the course of 5 days, and you mean to tell me that these two people who have been apart for 5 years just suddenly develop romantic feelings over the course of like 3 days? At least with Warren, you've been hanging out consistently for a few months now, so it's not that implausible. But with Chloe? No, it doesn't make any sense. It actually makes less sense than Chloe and Rachel's 3-day instant love story, just because at least there you could argue it's a Romeo and Juliet type beat. But here, it doesn't make much sense to me. It also leads you to be more inclined to save Chloe at the end, which is not a good thing, and in fact defeats the entire point of the story. Instead of learning that you can't help everyone and that you should always try to help as many people as you can, you throw all of that character growth into the trash for a blue-haired stoner who has done nothing but emotionally abuse you since the day you reunited. You learn nothing by saving Chloe, and that's really sad. I feel like it just completely cheapens the experience, like if Spike and the protagonist of Shadow of the Colossus didn't die at the end of their respective stories. It would be like if Victor made the female creature in Frankenstein, or if Ryan Gosling actually got the girl at the end of Drive. It would be like if Oral Puppington lost his faith at the end of Moral Oral. It would be like if Scott Pilgrim learned nothing and was rewarded for being a piece of shit. Wait, you mean to tell me the Scott Pilgrim movie actually did that? Damn it! The point is, it completely destroys the actual lesson and gives the wrong message with no repercussions. You end the lives of thousands to save the life of one, and is that really a good thing? No, the answer is no before you have a chance to pontificate on that idea. You compare Chloe and Warren, and the difference is night and day. You have, on one hand, you have Chloe, who has done nothing but abuse you and your powers, and on the other hand, you have Warren, who is genuinely a good person who has done nothing but show you love, friendship, and support. You see the difference? If it was Warren that had to be sacrificed, this would be a different story. That would actually be a challenging choice, and it's because he's such a likable character, unlike Chloe, which is why it's not a choice at the end of the game. Chloe being such a hateable character really makes it so much easier to let her die in that bathroom. All you had to do was make Chloe a character that was actually well written, and I suppose that's the biggest flaw in this entire game. There's a problem here in this entire series and many other games even, and it's the video game romance option dilemma. See, it's quite simple. In a game, the romance options depend on what the narrative wants. But this can directly and negatively contrast with what the player wants, as the player isn't playing as the main character, but rather as themselves. As a player, what you want is the top priority, and it should be. In a game about your choices, what you want to be the most important thing, even if it goes against the narrative. This game suffers from this dilemma immensely. It wants you to pick Chloe, yet the existence of Warren immediately ruins this as a narrative, and it's all because I, as the player, think Warren is a much better character and a much better romance option. The narrative wanted me to give a shit about Chloe, but they forgot that they had to give the player choice, and they forgot to account for this. The later games would learn from this to varying degrees of success. Take Life is Strange 2, for example. You get two options here, Finn and Cassidy. They both have unique interactions built into the story if you want to experience either of them. That said, the routes are different, and Finn's story in particularly leaves me feeling a little strange. Finn is the gay route in Life is Strange 2, and for some reason his romance route is tied directly to the negative influence on Danny Boy / the evil route. This kind of rubs me the wrong way, even though I know it's the meme of be gay, do crimes. It's just a tad off-putting that you can only be gay in a way that negatively impacts the rest of the narrative. Now, this may be because Finn is an intrinsically feloniously inclined character, but it comes off a bit odd to me. Cassidy, on the other hand, has a very fun route that's tied to being a positive influence on Danny Boy, despite the fact that the 10-year-old Danny Boy becomes an incel for no reason when you spend time with her. Now, my experience with that game has been going for the positive influence route, as it leads to the only good ending in the game, which means I'm essentially forced into taking the Cassidy route by the narrative. That said, I like Cassidy a lot more than Finn, so it works out in this case. True Colors doesn't actually have this problem, and they've got it all figured out. While Ryan is still more plot relevant than Steph overall, they both have parts in the larger narrative, and so their respective romance routes are built into the game. This one is an example of how to do romance options properly, because it means I can pick Ryan or Steph and still do everything else to get the best ending. It's perfectly set up because what I want as the player doesn't negatively impact the narrative. The story gets to have its cake and eat it too, as do I, so we're both happy. Directly compare it to its predecessors and the difference is astonishing. All you had to do was integrate both options into the larger narrative in a natural way instead of them either being an option for fun, like the first game, or directly tied to specific pathways, like the second. Now, the odd one out here is Before the Storm, as the option is really just Rachel, and before someone gets on my case for ignoring Elliot, who you can technically romance, he doesn't actually count. The game really only gives you one choice, and this can either be a blessing or a curse in a game like this. This works in this game for one reason, and it's because Chloe is so unrelatable and unenjoyable that I'm just playing the game as that character and not as me. See, in all of the other games, you don't really play as Max or Sean or Alex. You're playing as yourself, and that's the nature of the choice-based game. In Batman the Telltale series, I am not playing as Bruce Wayne or Batman. I'm playing it as myself, which means I get to be Batman and fulfill the dumb things that I and the vast majority of other players want to do. The playable character is equal parts their own character and equal parts the person playing the game. So maybe that's why I like Max so much. She's literally me. But that's besides the point. Back to Before the Storm, it's the only game to have one romance option, and since there isn't a different option to choose, it avoids this problem by default. But in a similar vein, having only one option can cause this problem, and sometimes even having an option at all can be the problem. Case in point, Horizon Forbidden West's DLC. In a series where I am female Jesus hunting down robot dinosaurs in order to save the world in a post-apocalypse, I don't need or want to have the option to romance someone, especially when it contradicts what was established and implied in the first game. In the first game, Aloy is implied to be asexual and aromantic, and this is a really compelling choice, because it completely eliminates the need to have a romance system, especially in a game where romance is absolutely not important. I'm here to hunt, not to romance people. When this DLC came out, a lot of people got mad because they made Aloy a lesbian. I was mad because they took away one of the only examples of an aro ace protagonist in a AAA big budget game. We are not the same. Now, if romance was here from the start, that'd be a different story. Then only having one option would annoy me because it would be like Life is Strange with only being able to pick Chloe, with Warren still being there. This situation is where what the player wants and what the narrative wants inherently contradict each other in a negative way, because in the Horizon games, I am much more inclined to pick the funny, sad, alcoholic blacksmith, because I personally like that character. But the romance option in the Forbidden West DLC was a character that only appears in that DLC, for now, and wasn't an established character that I, as the player, really got to know, so I'm much less likely to care. Now, you're probably asking me, what does this have to do with the Life is Strange games? And the answer is not a damn thing, but it's connected to the point I'm making, so just deal with it. Also, Aloy and Chloe have the same voice actress, and her performance as Aloy is actually really, really good. Anyway, to wrap this up, there is an interesting relationship between what the player wants and what the narrative wants when it comes to romance. And it's why, with one exception, Every protagonist in the Life is Strange series is bisexual, to account for the dilemma that comes when the player's wants contradict the wants of the narrative. There's probably a lot more to say, and I'd love to do a proper study of the psychology that goes into this, but I don't have that kind of time, qualifications, or money to do this, so I'll have to put that project on the back burner for a real long time. I at least needed to bring this idea up now because it's an interesting thing to me, and it says absolutely nothing about me that I'm more inclined to pick the male love interest in these games compared to the female love interests. It's not my fault they're the better options in 2 out of the 3 games in the series, but Warren and Ryan are simply so much better than Chloe and Steph. This game's soundtrack is amazing. From the licensed music to the original music, everything is phenomenal here, and as I re-listened to some of the music in this game and some of True Colors' music, it got me thinking about how music can influence the experience of playing a game. I can name a ton of songs from those 2 games, but nothing from Before the Storm, which is probably why that game is such a miserable slog. There isn't anything memorable to the soundtrack. Even the music in Life is Strange 2 is memorable. I mean, the most memorable music were songs I already knew well before playing the game, with one exception being the song Cassidy sings by the campfire, and that's only because it was a good scene. Although I was irrationally angry the first time I played it, I still remember the music. It got me thinking about just how important music is to a game. It's the easiest way to make something a lot easier to deal with, especially when the focus of the game isn't engaging. The music in a game like True Colors or Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, or River City Girls isn't necessary to make the experience work, but it makes the game even more enjoyable because the music goes hard. But on the other hand, the music can make something a terrible experience, like the infamous Resident Evil Director's Cut basement theme, or the sheer lack of music in Before the Storm. It's something that needs to be there to help the experience if it's not good enough to stand on its own. Now, no creative ever wants to imagine that they're creating the worst game ever made, and a good soundtrack can help soften the blow, or at the very least make it a more tolerable experience. A prime example of this, I tried to play Before the Storm without playing any music of my own, just really letting the game wash over me with whatever was there. And I was so sorely disappointed that I had to start playing my own music just to feel even slightly better about the nightmare I was going through. I'm not being too harsh on that game. Far from it, actually, because there's only one song that plays that's even slightly memorable, and yet I don't know the name of it at all. It plays during a dream/delusion sequence in William's car during the first episode, should you be so inclined to try and find it. And that game has 2 more episodes after that scene. So if your soundtrack has peaked that early and it's a song that plays for barely any time at all, you've really messed up. It makes the game a miserable slog when you're not getting that little bit of music to brighten the mood, just like Life is Strange or True Colors. I vividly remember the fact that Max listens the song to all of you as she walks through the halls to the bathroom in the first episode, and that she listens to Something Good when she wakes up in episode 2, and Spanish Sahara during the end of the game, or when Alex sings Creep by Radiohead when she's alone in the apartment in episode 1, and Blister in the Sun during episode 4's Spring Festival. The point is, those moments that are accented with music, or focused on it when the character is singing it, help strengthen the overall experience. It can also be used to help tell the story without having to use dialogue, but that's a conversation for a different day. I don't think it's a stretch to claim that prequels made after the original are more often than not going to be bad. And a large part of this is that if you play it after the original, it immediately loses all sense of tension since you know that only some things can happen. In Red Dead Redemption 2, you know that characters like John and Dutch have to live because they're in the first game. But you know that a character like Arthur Morgan is going to die if you've played the first game. It's why I've never finished Red Dead Redemption 2, because all tension was immediately deflated for me, simply by playing the first game. Before the Storm has a similar problem, although it has a myriad of other problems related to being a prequel. Before the Storm might have been a better game if it was released first, or even if you play that game first, not knowing anything about the series. But that's a paradoxical situation, since the game relies on you having knowledge of the first game to understand the importance of certain events, and if you've played the first game, This one does nothing to warrant existing. It expands on the backstory of a corpse and an asshole that I don't care about, and it does so in a way that feels like a chore to get through. You sit there hoping for the game to suddenly get good, and it never does. And it's all because you know what's coming. You know that David is going to marry Joyce. You know that Chloe is going to get expelled. And you know that Rachel must bite the dust at some point. Now, you could argue that that last point could make this game worth something in a dramatic irony sense, but I'd argue that it does nothing. Especially since we never get any real sense of Rachel in the first game. You also know that Chloe won't change, and then that's a problem. Now, if you released the prequel first and incorporated the player's choices into the next game, then I'd be a little more forgiving. If the original game recognized that Chloe is madly in love with Rachel and she isn't constantly trying to fight her mom, then maybe Chloe could have had an arc where she became a good person and it makes the ending choice of sacrificing her harder to choose. But it doesn't work like that. It's the intrinsic problem for a retroactive prequel that tries to retcon a pre-established character. You can't change what's already done. You'd have to plan the narrative of one game to flow directly into the next, where choices in the prequel impact things in the original, like how the events of The Hobbit flow directly into Fellowship of the Ring. It was built around being one cohesive narrative universe, but this wasn't built around that. It was built as a spin-off to satiate the fans while the second game was in production, and nothing more. Before the Storm is a failure in every regard, and is yet another example of why most retroactive prequels, or rather pre-sequels, are just released after the original thing are awful. Of course, exceptions exist. I would be remiss if I didn't mention things like Yakuza 0, Metal Gear Solid 3, or Batman Arkham Origins, but these are far and few in between. For every one of those exists thousands of other games that try to expand on the story of the first game by explaining what led to it, and yet they'll fail miserably. It's an odd dilemma, but one that'll never go away. It's easier to expand on pre-existing properties than it is to make a new one, and it's why this kind of game will never go away. No matter how low the success rate is, prequels, like remakes, will always happen. Now, before I say it, you already know what it is. It's the scene that occurs in every game, and it's one of the more important ones in a character sense. I'll also tell you that the name I've given this moment is a reference to a song in the classical Disney animated movie The Little Mermaid, a movie I've maybe seen twice in my life, and that song is Kiss the Girl. How have I gotten this far into the essay without saying the funny trope term yet? I couldn't tell you. So let's take a moment to talk about some of them in a mock tier list. There's only 7 Kiss the Girl moments in the whole series to talk about, and I'm gonna say this. These are ranked based on the quality of the whole scene, which means that there will be some surprises in this section, and maybe even some upsets. You've been warned. At the bottom of this list is Chloe, which surprises no one. There's technically 2 options I could pick, and I'm only going to talk about the main one in episode 3, not the potential one at the end of episode 5. Does this mean I technically lied to you when I said there's only 7? Yes, but that's not important. This scene is one I would have talked about here, so I wouldn't bother to recap it. Just go back and look for it in this video. It's somewhere in the story section. Anyway, putting my hatred for Chloe aside, I really don't like this scene because it comes out of nowhere and feels like it just wasn't properly built up to or earned. As such, bottom of the list, F tier. At number 6, we've got Finn in Life is Strange 2. I've already mentioned it, but Finn's moment is directly tied to being a criminal, and as such, if you agree to his big heist idea, you'll get the moment to kiss the girl. It's been built to be better than Chloe's moment, but as you can flirt with him well before this moment, but it's still not a satisfying scene, especially since that heist can only go wrong. Sure, you get a somewhat sweet moment between them as Sean realizes his sexuality, but it's not the best scene. I don't care too awful much about Finn to begin with, and maybe that's why I'm putting it where I am, but I couldn't tell you. D tier. Clocking in at number 5 is Steph in Life is Strange True Colors. I don't hate Steph as much as I dislike Finn or Chloe, but that doesn't mean that her kiss the girl moment is particularly good. It suffers from the fact that there's too many dialogue options and none of them are good, and it also defeats the point of that game's overall message. You can find out that message in the essay I did on that game, which I think should be out October 26th if things don't go horrifically wrong, and as such, I can't rank it too high. I'd actually put it on the same level as Finn for a similar reason that, as a scene, it's just kinda meh, D tier. Number 4 is where things start to get good, and is only mildly a surprise because we've got Rachel in Before the Storm. I've talked a lot about this scene, and for good reason. It's the only good moment in that game, and is actually a strong contender in this list, or it would be if it didn't ruin the goodwill it brought up, or built up, in the beginning of the scene by bringing that game's atrocious plot dialogue into it. That said, the actual moment is incredibly sweet and shot very cinematically and felt earned. If you want to know more, go back and go and watch that video. It's a good one if you want to see me lose my mind for 15 pages of script. That should actually be the video out that's after this one, which I believe means it will be October 12th, assuming things don't go horrifically wrong. Anyway, it's a really good scene, even if I hate the characters involved. High B tier or a low A tier, it depends on how I'm feeling that day. Now is where things get juicy, because there's only 3 moments left, and it's a tight race for the top. Alas, it's time for the big surprise upset, because at number 3, we have Warren. Shocking, I know, but hear me out. It's a good scene. It's the culmination of everything we've been building up to throughout the whole game, and it is a very sweet moment in the same way as the kiss of the girl moment in Drive, where they both know they'll never see each other again, and it's this big heroic moment where the hero then goes off to save the world, because they're a real human being and all that jazz. It's a good scene, but compared to numbers 1 and 2, you'll see why this is number 3. A tier. At number 2, we've got the one no one saw coming. It's Cassidy. This is the longest kiss the girl moment in the series, and it's primarily because it's got like 3 different stages, and a whole lot more than kissing happens. That said, it's also one of the sweetest moments in that whole game, and is one of the only times that Sean gets to have a normal young adult moment. It's got a lot of really good character stuff, and it's got a lot of good sentimentality to it. It also plays a part in that larger narrative in a way that makes sense. Perhaps I treated Life is Strange 2 too harshly, because this moment is a really good scene, and an easy S-tier scene. While Cassidy isn't my favorite character, and I don't like her as much as Warren, she's a really good character who gets a really good kiss the girl moment. And at number 1, the moment you've all been waiting for, the immediate perfect top of S-tier, Ryan in Life is Strange True Colors. Everything here is perfect. The scene works perfectly on its own and fits so brilliantly into the core theme of wanting to belong and finding your place in the world. The dialogue is limited to a few choices, and it works out so well. Granted, I love Ryan as a character, but it's such a good, genuinely heartwarming scene. You get a lot of good character stuff, and the tree gift is really sweet in the context of Ryan's life and is a symbol for Alex finally finding a place to call home. It's a perfect scene with no flaws, and it's great. It feels like what every other kiss the girl moment should have been. Everything here is phenomenally well executed, from the background music to the dialogue to the moment itself. It's the absolute best scene in the entire series, bar none. I already said it, but it's immediately the top of S tier and is unlikely to be dethroned. And with all of that, that's all 7 kiss the girl moments ranked. Did that make any sense? Probably not. Do I care? Not particularly. I mean, I told you up front that this was going to be the most self-indulgent thing I've ever written and recorded, and don't worry, it definitely is. And it's why this has a bunch of links and stuff strewn throughout. Actually, editing note, there's not links and stuff strewn out throughout this video. There are in the original essay, but you're not going to get to read that. Sorry! I can't understate how much I love this game. It's something that will always be in the back of my head, and I will always look forward to replaying it. I genuinely love this game, and it's still, to this day, one of my absolute favorite games ever made. There's so much to talk about, both in terms of what I've covered today and what I could still cover if I had the brain power to do it. But I'll spare you from that, for now. But I think I've gone on long enough. With everything in mind, I'll give this game a genuine 9 out of 10. For as close to perfect as this game is, there are still some flaws that stick out to me like a sore thumb, but this game's strengths are so good that it overshadows those issues. I can't repeat just how good almost everything here is, and it's highly worth checking out for yourself. Anyways, my name is A Leg of Glazed Ham, and thank you for reading or listening to this beast of an essay. It feels right that this is actually the new record holder, I think, in terms of written script for this channel. It always really means a lot that you've stuck through my ramblings for this long. I hope you got something worthwhile out of this, or maybe you had fun listening to my descent into madness. As always, thank you so much, and thanks again, and good night.